So I'm assuming everybody has a login to Totango, which is great. So when you log in, you will see your own customized page of My Portfolio. This is going to be your home, and it should be a representation of your portfolio. So you'll have a snapshot into how many customers you have in total, what's the total portfolio value, and also what is the distribution of health. So you'll actually be able to see how many customers fall into each health bucket. If you just started with Totango, if you're still onboarding and implementing, and maybe this area has not been completely filled out for you yet, just wait until you're completely done onboarding. Things will start making sense. But if you're already live with Totango and up and running, then you should already have this information available to you based on your assignment and based on your portfolio and all the customers that you manage. You also have a view into the revenue center. If your company is using a revenue center, which is the financial component of Totango that you can use to forecast and not predict, but basically forecast if the customer is going to renew, upsell, or churn, you will have a window into that directly from here based on your portfolio. If we start to scroll to the bottom a little bit, we have 3 different tabs here, and by default, we are going to be within the notifications tab that allows you to see all the latest interactions or notifications on your customers. And they come in different forms. So if somebody has completed a task, for example, Eric here, he actually created a task for this particular account, you'll get a notification. If somebody completes a task, you'll get a notification. If there's any health increases or declines or increases or improvements in health, you will get a notification as well. And if somebody makes a touch point note on your customer, so if somebody has an interaction or conversation or maybe a session with your customer that they document in Totango, that will come via notification. Now, there are things that you can do here in the screen. So if you wanted to take some action on a specific notification, maybe on this account, their health has declined to poor. And now I actually want to make sure that there's some follow-up. I can actually add a task directly from the screen and assign it to myself, or I can assign it to someone else in my team. I can give a priority and a due date. And once I click on Add Task, the task is going to come via the notification tab for that particular individual. They will also get an email notification so that they can log in through the email notification. On any of these screens, I can also click on the open space like this. Let me just get rid of the task. And it will expand like some high-level information about the customer. So I'll see the information about their health and the reason for their poor health. I will also see the team, so who's responsible for this account, any open tasks on that account. I can actually document my interaction directly from the screen if I wanted to. And I can see all the latest updates for that account. Any of the notifications, any of the changes in health can also be visible to me here. And when I click on the open space, it just closes that back up for me. Now, once I process these notifications, I can just dismiss and continue. So the idea is that you're going to be deciding what you need to do with each one and dismissing them as you kind of review them. Now, for anyone that does not necessarily have a portfolio of customers and maybe a management team, doesn't need to process these one by one, you can actually use the bulk action feature and dismiss all notifications in one shot. All of these screens also have filtering capabilities. So you can filter and you can sort. So these are all pretty consistent across the board. I'm not going to worry about the attention center. This attention center really kind of, the feature allows you to pin specific customers to the attention center if you want to, and it just brings them into your attention center so you can easily monitor them and make sure that they're in front of your focus. So that's essentially the capability there. And any of the tasks that are assigned to you, you can actually manage through the tasks channel or tab. You can also view them by your open tasks, your completed tasks, or tasks you assign to others. And you can complete them directly from the screen. So for example, if I'm already done with this one, I can simply mark it as complete, and I can create a touch point if I'm going to note my interaction or some sort of follow-up or maybe some bullet point highlights, or I can simply complete it without adding a touch point. So I can select this and click on done, and my task is going to be completed and moved out. So that's your home page. I'm going to continue moving down the line on the navigation panel. So moving to the executive console, if I look into that, I have two options here. First is health and the team. So I'm going to focus first on the health, the team section. And the team section allows you to visualize how everybody's doing in the team. So all the CSMs should be listed out here and some of the key statistics about them. So right now we have a few CSMs. We have tracking as to how they're covering their accounts. So if you are going to document your touch points, complete tasks in Totango, we will be able to see how many accounts you're covering out of the whole. So we will see the account coverage, how many out of the total have been covered. And we also have a couple of metrics that we can customize here. So if there are key performance indicators or KPIs that are important to your business, we can infuse them into the screen and then you can track against them. So for example, in this particular case, one metric that we have, this is actually a custom metric that was defined. There was a formula to compute an average time and minutes spent per active user. And we're tracking to see if it's going up or down. So this is something that, we measure our team on, for example. We can see how that's tracking. And we also see each individual's health. So it gives everybody kind of visibility to see how everybody is doing, how's the team performing. So that's the team section. The health section is actually, the default of that is going to be inherited directly from the health definitions. So if you already have your health definitions in place, basically it's going to take that same format of all of your buckets in the health profiles, and it's going to expose those segments for you so you can see how they're trending. You can see how many accounts you have. For example, we have the onboarding segment. We have 18 accounts there. This is how much volume or revenue is there. This is the health of that segment. And we can actually track the fluctuations in health. If we hover over this little timeline, you can see how that segment's been performing. This area is customizable to you. So if you decide, let's say you want to add other segments and start looking at other slices of data, that change is only going to be reflected in your own instance. So you don't need to worry about breaking anybody else's configuration if you start going in here and playing with your own segmentation. So feel free to do that. If I scroll down again, I have a representation of everybody in the team, their total portfolios, how many accounts they manage, and what's the total revenue they're responsible for. Now moving on to the Revenue Center. So as I mentioned, the Revenue Center is a component of Totango that allows you to manage the financials. Some of you may have it, some of you may not. It's part of our Pro Plus package. So if your team is interested in using Totango for the financial aspect, let us know or let your CSM know, at Totango know, so that we can work with you to get this included. But basically, if you do have it and your team decides to use it for financial forecasting, this is where you'll go and you can visualize and see how you're doing each quarter. You can forecast your accounts and actually track progress. So it's a really nice way to have everybody on board on the same page. Segments. So this is a fun area actually. So this is where we have the segments where you can create, if we just start creating things, you have 3 different things you can create. You can create a folder and you can create account level segments or user level segments. I would encourage everybody if so that it doesn't get cluttered for everyone else. If there's some sort of structure for your team to work through, like hierarchy of specific folders, maybe create those first. And then if you create your own segments, make them private. And I'll show you some examples of how to build a segment. I'm sorry, for some reason, in the demo instance, sometimes I get these little error windows. So for this particular segment, I'm going to be building an account level segment, and how I know that is that there's a little briefcase next to it. If this was a user level segment, I'd have the little guy icon there, the little person. From here, I can segment and add criteria to my filters. So let me just try to do that. I hope I can. For some reason, not letting me do it. But basically, maybe there's going to be another area where I can show you how the editor works. But basically, if I didn't add any segmentation, what I would get is all the customers. So I have all of my customers here, 4,000 or so. I have the contract value. and I have my results. So I have all my customers listed. I have the status, I have my health, and I have my contract value. Another cool thing of how I can leverage this is actually I can use different data and expose it in my segment. So for example, if I'm looking at things that are relevant to me, I can expose them. So if I wanted to look at customers by maybe account type, I can select that data, bring it in. Maybe I'm looking at company size. And assuming I have all that data, it will be exposed to me and I will see that in my results. And I'll show you that in a second. Let's see what else I can bring in. I can also look at things that the customer is doing in my product. So if I'm looking at specific activity count, maybe I want to look at how many documents they created in the last 14 days. And maybe I want to see how many documents they shared. So this is, for example, all the data I'm interested in. I can actually drag and drop it. So if I wanted to move it or reposition it somewhere else, I can do that. And when I click on Add Columns, my new columns that I now added are going to be exposed in my view. So this is really neat if I'm looking for ways to analyze my data and I want to see that easily in my view. So now I have documents created and documents shared all available to me in my results. And if for whatever reason you want to take this data and analyze it somewhere else, you have the capability of actually exporting the list. And the way you would export it, you can click on this little icon and you can download it to CSV directly from this list. And all the data will be available to you in the CSV format. Okay, so if I wanted to save my segment, I'm going to just give it a test name. I can give it a quick description so that I know what I'm doing within this particular segment. And then I can also file it within a particular folder. So if I already have a structure in place where I want to organize my list or my segment, put it here. If I don't have a folder yet, I can actually create a folder directly here. And then what I want to do, as I mentioned, you can make these segments private or public, and I would encourage everyone, if you're just creating lists or segments for yourself, for your own consumption, make them private. If you want the team to be able to leverage them, make them public. So for now, we'll keep it private. When I save it, now I have my list, and I can, leverage it from here. Once I've saved it, there's another interesting thing you can do. By default, the results are going to be all accounts. But if you go to a segment and you want to just look at your accounts, if you're a CSM and you have a portfolio, you can click on My Accounts, and then the results will show you just the accounts that you manage. So you don't need to worry about everyone else's. It will update. As you can see, the numbers drop significantly, and now I'm only seeing my accounts versus all accounts. So that's a neat way to use the segment. Another thing I can do with a segment is I can follow it. So for example, if there's really interesting criteria that I'm finding or looking at, and I want to get a regular update about that segment, and this would be like a daily email, I can follow it and it'll subscribe me. So every day I'll get that digest with information for that particular segment. Other things that I can do here directly from the segment is launch a success play. And for those of you, this may be a new concept, but a success play in Totango is basically an automated process where you can define a set of tasks based on specific criteria that the CSMs will get based on those conditions that you've defined to execute some sort of process. So for example, if I'm looking for, maybe there's a QBR process that we have as a team and we have to do a QBR every quarter, you can maybe set up a success play saying that, if the last QBR date is over X number of days, there's a new QBR that needs to be scheduled and prepped for. So it could be a success play. There's many, many ways to use success plays. It could be for upsells. It could be for potential risk conditions. It's basically automating the process so that the CSM doesn't need to worry about remembering everything that they need to do. The system will prompt them as needed based on the criteria of when they need to perform or take specific action. So those are all the things that you can do in a segment. And again, we built an account level segment. You can also build user level segments, and very similar to how we built the account level segment, you're simply going to have results, and those results are going to be your end users. So if I'm looking at, let's say, all my new users, I want to say their first activity date is in the last 7 days. And I want to make sure that I'm looking at customers that are only paying. So right now I have my user level filters right here. You can see the little individual. And if I need anything on the account level, actually I can click on that and it gives me the filtering capabilities for an account. So I'm going to look at customers that are of the status type paying, because I only want to look at new users that are coming from my paying customers. Let's see who I get. Okay, so I have 46 users across 30 accounts that were new in the last 30 days. And the reason I know they're new is that their first activity with me was in the last 7 days. So that's how I can build that segment really quick. And again, this is a user level segment. So now my results actually expose my specific individual end users, and they tell me which accounts they belong to. So from here, actually, I wanted to quickly dive into an account profile page so that you can see how an account profile looks. And this page is customizable to an extent. So by default, you'll have your account, and all this data on the top panel here with status and creation renewal dates. This can be adjusted or modified. So if you have other data that you want to expose here, the little settings wheel, and this is only admin level users can do this for the team. But if you're a CSM and you would want to see some key information here, you can let your admins know. But basically, you can edit and expose things that are important to your business or anything you need to know about quickly at a glance when you're looking at an account profile. So you can actually expose those data points in this view. Other things you can do, there's some icons. So adding to attention center, this is the same one we saw in the beginning, where if you pin a customer to your attention center, they will end up in that tab on your home portfolio. I can edit account tags, which I'll cover in a minute. I can edit contract information. Typically, we wouldn't be doing that here. A lot of times, contract information is coming directly from your CRM, like Salesforce, so you don't need to worry about editing anything here from the screen. So if I continue to scroll down, I have a section here that talks about my health. And depending on your definition for health, all your reasons will be available to you. So this customer is in good health, and I know exactly why, because I have a little radio button. And when I hover over, it actually tells me what the definition is. So in my definition for good health for a particular customer, they have to be active at least 20 days in the last 30. And they were active 25 days, so they're above my threshold. Same for all the other ones. This one, the threshold is 50%, and it's 63. So I know exactly why, and all the conditions have to be satisfied to be green or healthy. If they're not satisfied, you might slip into average health. So in this particular case, if I look at the timeline, when I clicked on this week, actually each rectangle is a week. If I click on the June 6th through 12th, this customer was on average health, and I see why, because their active users percentage was below the 50%. They were only at 42, which bumped them into kind of a lower health state. So this is your way to kind of keep an eye on health and see how you're doing. And if you want to review the specifics for why health was in a particular state at a particular time point, you can actually analyze that from here. Now, if we jump to the little right side here really quick, there's an ability for you to look at the tasks. So the first two tasks are going to be available to you, but if you want to look at all of them, you can actually click on this little 6 or see all tasks, and that will actually take you to the section below, which allows you to see all the tasks that are under your responsibility for this particular account. You can also add a task directly from the screen, so you can type the task description, you can assign it, give it priority, and add a task directly from this section of the portfolio. You can also see the timeline. So anything that happened to this customer, any notifications on health, any tasks completed or assigned would also be available for you as well in the timeline. You can also add a touch point directly here. So any notifications or any interactions that you have had with the customer, you can note them here directly from the screen. All right, moving to the key metrics section. So the key metrics section is also configurable. You have up to 3 visual graphs like this and you have up to 6 data points that you can infuse into this view. Again, this is going to be very specific to your business, so you can expose anything that's interesting and relevant. By editing this little edit metrics section, again, this is only available for an admin user, but it's very easy to swap the data. So you can simply, remove by clicking on the little X, the data that's not relevant, and then bring in other data from the left that you would want to see for your particular customers in your portfolio. So this is very specific to your business, but it's very powerful because at a glance, you see some of the key metrics and how they're tracking for a particular customer at any given point. If I continue moving down on the page, I have a couple of sections here. One is users leaderboard and one is usage leaderboard. So the users leaderboard allows me to see kind of in order of how active those customers are. In the last 14 days is my default, but I can change that. I can see who were my most active users. The ones that have a little crown means they have been defined as key contacts, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But it gives you a cool way to kind of see who are your top customers or top users within a particular account. You can also click on new users. So if there are ever new users added, you can see them directly here. You can see how long they've been active and when they were created. So it's a cool way to kind of monitor the end users. The usage leaderboard allows you to actually see how this customer is using your product and which areas of your product they're using. So this particular product has documents, it has reports. Those are all modules in that particular product. For you, it could be completely different or different types of solutions. But it allows you to see how active is that customer in that particular area of your product. And it also benchmarks them against other customers of the similar health profile and kind of gives them a ranking. So in this particular case, this customer is using the documents really well compared to similar accounts. So they have 13 users active in that particular area, but other accounts of the similar health profile only have 5. So you can actually have that conversation with the customer and say, hey, you're doing really well with using our document solution, but maybe on the, other areas of the product, maybe they're lagging a little bit. This customer looks like they're doing a little bit better than the average or the rest of the customers in the same profile or health profile. But in other cases, you could have customers that may be underutilizing your solution suite, and that could be a good conversation for them. Moving down the line, we have the about the company section. So if we have information, this is something we get through a third-party system about that customer. It will expose kind of their logo, their website, some of the financial information, where they're based, any social media links. And now we have the team section. So the team section first is going to be your team. So who's the success manager on your team and who's the sales manager on your team managing that customer. And then the key contact section is the one that I mentioned, is that you can define per account, and you can actually specify who is your key contact. And if they have been defined as a key contact, then you will actually be able to crown them with this little crown, which is really neat because then visually you're able to see that they're your key contact, and you can leverage that information in any of the segmentation, any campaigns that you run. If you want to maybe just run it and only send it to the specific key contacts, you can do that by leveraging this capability. All right, so now we're kind of approaching the bottom of the portfolio or account profile page. The tags, if you as a team will end up using tags, and those are good ways to put some sort of label on the customer based on specific criteria. I would discourage you guys from adding these kind of randomly, because if everybody starts adding their own tags, then things can get pretty messy. But if you're in alignment as far as naming conventions and what is the process and what should be a tag, those again could be added automatically via segments or manually this way. You just need to be on the same page with the team to make sure that the people are not adding the same tag that has a different name, because it will essentially appear twice in the system and will clutter it for everyone. Now, active campaigns. So if you are going to be using Totango's campaigns capability, which is the customer communication email program, They can be leveraged. You will have all the active campaigns available for you to see. And at the very bottom, it's basically all the information, but just more exposed, like you have more granularity or more history here. So you can see all the users as well as the kind of the top ones. On the usage, you can see what this customer has been doing. So you can see modules that they use and actions that they perform. The default is past 14 days, but you can change the scope to another time frame. And it allows you to kind of to see how this is trending. So for example, reports, I have 10 users, I have this many user actions and reports, and this is my fluctuation for that particular module usage. I also have little visual graphs that I can click on to see how that's been trending for that particular customer. So this is more granular. So if you wanted to prepare yourself for a conversation with a customer, you can take a look at how they've been using your product. If I go to tasks, this is just another place, where you can manage the tasks and see what's still outstanding for you and complete them directly from here. Timeline is, again, it's just more comprehensive and a longer extension of the history for all the interactions and notifications that have happened for the customer. And again, you can note your specific touch points directly here. You can also look at the campaigns. So if you're using campaigns, you can see which ones have been launched and which ones are, in the history for this customer. An information tab is actually a very cool way to identify what data is being tracked for your customers. So some of the data we might be getting directly from your application or your product, and some of the data we may be getting from your other systems, maybe another CRM system. And you'll be able to see what data we're actually collecting for each account. So all of the attributes, all of the metrics, counters, they will be here for you. And for some of them, if you're using Salesforce, and if we're syncing that information from Salesforce, you'll be able to see that through this little icon, little Salesforce icon. You'll know that this is coming from Salesforce. So that's kind of your information overall about that customer. So that's the account profile. If we continue to move down the navigation panel, our next section is reports. And reports, if you think about reports, and we were in segments earlier, when we build our segments, they're the ones that we use as building blocks for reports. So if we build a report, or if we have a report, we actually have some segments that are being leveraged in that particular report. So let me just see if I can grab some sort of segment or a list. And actually I have some lists here where I'm looking at metric of an average time spent per user drops. So I'm actually going to use that one. And I'm going to make it red because that's not good. And then I have some that increase. So I'm going to actually select that segment. I'm going to make it green. So you can customize the colors here, as you can see. And once I have exposed my segments, I have my two trend lines. So I'm going to have my two trend lines for those two specific segments that are looking at specific information. And I can see, day by day, I can see how we're doing, how many customers were in that particular segment on each particular day. Just to note, the last data point here is the day prior. So we take a daily snapshot of this. So it's going to be yesterday. It was Monday, June 27th. Today is Tuesday, the 28th. So yesterday was the last data point for that. I can also slice my data by any attribute or engagement metric. So for example, if I wanted to look at my success manager on an account for this particular situation, maybe I want to look at my contract value. I can bring that in. And when I click on OK, 2 data points have been added. And now they're available to me at the bottom. So you can see per the distribution for all of these segments based on each customer success manager. So it's a very nice way for me to visualize that. And I can also customize how I view the data. So I have my contract value. I can actually edit the breakdown. And if I wanted to see the breakdown in a table, I can just simply check box the table view. I can say if I'm sorting lowest to highest, or maybe I want highest first. I can decide. When I click on OK, now I actually have my table available to me, and it looks a little slightly different than this one. So I have my by contract value. I can see how many customers I have in each of these specific buckets of customers. Either their average time is dropping by 30% or their average time is increasing by 30%. So it's a nice way to distribute that data. I can also change how I view the information. So now I have trend lines, but I can actually look at percentage distribution. So if I change it to percentage distribution, my graph will look slightly different. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. You can change the dates, you can make it a custom date. And then when you save your report, you can give it a custom name so it's meaningful. And basically the thing to keep in mind is that when you build a report, the building blocks for those reports are the segments. So you'd actually have to first build your segments, and then you would actually build your report from there. So that's it for reports. The remaining items are going to be the success plays and campaigns. So I'm not sure if all of you or if some of you have success plays, but success plays are the ways to automate a process. So basically you would build a success play and define a process for your team to follow so that each CSM will get an automatic task based on specific criteria. So for example, if I'm going to build a success play and I can define my segmentation, I'm going to be looking at paying customers, and maybe my success play is maybe going to be an upsell success play. So I'm going to look at customers that are of high license utilization. In this particular case, it's above 60%. But I think, for me to do an upsell, I'd probably want to do a license utilization a little bit higher than 60. But for now, for example purposes, I think this is okay. I can see who are the customers that fall into this particular segment, just to give myself a quick check. And when I click on continue, I can specify what is the task going to be. So I can say reach out to have an upsell conversation. I can say who it's going to. So if it's going to the success manager directly, maybe sales manager. Is it assigned by me or someone else? Am I going to give it priority of high, normal, or low? And what's the due date? So I'm going to give them like 4 days to complete this after the task has been created. When I click on continue, I have another opportunity to review my specific success play, who's falling into that, and then I can activate. So by activating, when I click on activate, basically it will prompt me and let me know that there's going to be 80 tasks created for 80 accounts. And if I click on continue, all the tasks are going to be generated. My team, my CSMs are going to be getting a notification through their portfolio and also via email. And so this is a really nice way to automate some of your key processes and build them into the system so that you don't have to necessarily go in and look for things to do. The system will deliver what you need to do automatically to you. And if we think about campaigns are very similar as far as the building process, but they're externally facing. So you're actually going to build a process or some sort of communication to your customers. So think about things that you announce to your customers, or maybe you want to invite them to some sort of session and you're looking for kind of common denominators for somebody that's in a specific tier of customers that has been using or not using a particular feature. You can really educate them or promote those features directly from campaigns without having to depend on any sort of other system for email marketing communication. You can do this as a standalone way within Totango, so it gives you a little independence from any other departments. So if you're interested in campaigns, don't have to get campaigns, just let your CSM know, and we can work with you on getting that available. But you have a lot of options, so you can decide which type of campaign you're running. Introducing new features, onboarding new users, feature training, success beat, which is one you'll start seeing from us if you haven't yet. It's basically a usage reflection as to how you're doing and what you're doing in the product. You can extend that reflection to your customers and show them how they've been doing in the last week, how they've improved, maybe suggest some ways that they can, take advantage of other resources or other capabilities. You can also build your own campaign. So this is kind of the one that I like to use a lot, is where I can just define my own campaign and use a very simple plain text template. My editor, again, is very similar, so I can decide who's going to be getting this campaign, maybe I'm only going to be looking at my new key contacts, and I want my new key contacts. So I have only 2 users in this particular case. I can click on continue. I can give my campaign a goal. So if I'm actually prompting or encouraging my customers to use or do something in the product, I can have a very specific goal criteria. I can say that I want them to do a specific activity, and then I can measure against that. So that's the really nice, powerful capability of Totango, where not only do we know what your users are doing in the product, but we can also track and see if they're doing as much of what you'd like them to do by specifying very specific goals. In this particular, I'm not going to do a goal. I'm going to just skip. And this is where I can come up with my creative test for now, email subject. I can specify who my email is going from. So we can come directly from the Success Manager. So when your end users receive an email message, it's going to come as though it was sent directly from their assigned Customer Success Manager. We keep that intimacy as to that one-to-one interaction. Or it can come from a specific individual. So I'll keep it as myself for now. I also have a set of templates that are at my disposal. They can decide which one I want to use. If I want some graphics and some images, I can use the fancy ones. But if I'm just looking to do a quick plain text one, I can just select the plain text template and I can start customizing my message. So by default, I'm going to send it to my, I need to know who's the individual. So I'm going to address them by their first name. And also, for some reason, there is no first name. We usually like to use there. So we say hi there. That's your fallback. The other really powerful capability of a campaign is that you can infuse other data points. You can say let's say this customer, one of our X type of customers. And this X can actually be a particular data point. So this is going to be like an attribute or value sent to Totango. So for example, if we track the type of customer by maybe like there's a specific account type or tier, and maybe that's the attribute that you use. And we can actually expose that directly into the message. So we can say you are one of our enterprise type of customers, and this is why we wanted to extend this something to you, or we wanted to invite you to this webinar, or we wanted to make sure that you're aware of this really great capability that our other enterprise customers use. So you can really tune your message and really embed the specific data points that are relevant and specific to that individual customer. So that's a really nice way to use the data that you're already giving to Totango for your customer communications. And then basically you have an ability to edit this text, and then you can preview it. So definitely a good idea to preview and send yourself some test messages to make sure everything is looking the right way. And then when you click on continue, again, you can quickly look at your message again, and you can schedule it. So the scheduling, it can be just a one-time campaign. You can schedule a one-time campaign for later. It could be an ongoing campaign scheduled for later, or recurring. So our success beats are the ones that you would see, like, let's say every week, where it gives you a snapshot of how you've been doing, like a reflection of your usage. Those are recurring campaigns for us. So recurring means that they are going out to the same group of people every single week, but the data within that message may be changing, because this week you may have downloaded more documents or created more documents than you did last week. So those are just some examples. And when you click on continue, you'll be able to just activate your campaign, and the message will be delivered to your customer and users. Now, before you start using campaigns, if that's something you're intending to do, there are some things within the settings section that you would want to do as far as white labeling, to make sure that the campaigns are being sent directly from your domain, and are completely branded to your business. So I would encourage you to make sure that you review that before you start setting these up. And I think that pretty much covers it. I'm not going to spend so much time on the settings section because that's more an admin level area. But I'd be happy to do that if anybody has any specific questions. So we do have a few more minutes left. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the questions box, and I will address them if we have all the time. So I do have a couple already. There's a question coming in. How do you pull an account over to the attention center? So great question. So a couple of ways. So if we go back to the My Portfolio, one way to do it is if you have a notification that came in for a particular account. Let's say this one, the health declined to poor. I can simply click on the little pin here, and it will add that customer to my attention center. And again here, and it will do that. The other way to do it is directly from an account. So for example, if I look at a customer and let's say I'm just going to look at my healthy customers, I'm just going to, let's say, pick Twitter, and I can go directly to the account profile. I have another opportunity to get them into my attention center. So I can simply click on that and it will add it to my attention center from there. So those are all the kind of the ways that you can do that. We have another question. Okay, so we have a question asking, are emails sent via Totango logged anywhere, like in Salesforce? So the emails that are sent through the Totango campaigns currently are being logged in Totango. So you have an ability to see if there was a campaign and if there were any active campaigns for that particular account, and they will be under this section and also under this section. So there's a couple of places where you can view them. If you click on all campaigns, you'll see all the campaigns that have affected that particular customer. We do have some fairly robust capabilities between Totango and Salesforce as far as the syncing of interaction. I'll have to double check because historically we did not have an ability to track the campaign being sent into in Salesforce, but it may have changed recently. So let me just get back to you on that to make sure that I give you the right information if we do already have that tracking available. So I'll follow up with you. Also, if you want to send me a quick email, just Cecilia@totango.com. For some reason you don't hear from me in a day or so, just ping me to remind. Okay, so I'll give everybody another minute or so to type in any questions you have. Again, we do have more of these types of sessions available. So if you want to join in again and hear this same type of overview, slight variations, I'm sure, every time. But we'll be happy to have you again, as well as have you join any of the other programs that we have available to you. And again, all the information is available within the support.totango site under training. There's a calendar and upcoming link to upcoming sessions and also all the recorded on-demand sessions. Also hot tips of the week. So those are really quick videos that you can review at your leisure. They can give you some good ideas about how to use specific areas of Totango in the future as you get more familiar and comfortable. So with that, I'll hang out for another minute or so, and if we have any questions, we'll take them. Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining. I hope this was valuable, and we hope to see you again at our future sessions. Thank you so much. So again, stick around if you have questions. Otherwise, we'll see you again at another session soon. Thank you so much.